Vladimir Putin was speaking with Russian leaders recently, and he uttered some words regarding the American empire and multipolarity. I want you to take a look at his remarks, and then I want to talk about them.
Они должны были бы понять, что уже проиграли с самого начала нашей специальной военной операции, потому что ее начало означает и начало кардинального слома миропорядка по-американски. Это начало перехода от либерально-глобалистского американского эгоцентризма к действительно многополярному миру. Миру, основанному не на придуманных кем-то для себя эгоистических правилах, за которыми нет ничего, кроме как стремления к гегемонии, не на лицемерных двойных стандартах, а на международном праве, на подлинном суверенитете народов и цивилизаций, на их воле жить своей исторической судьбой, своими ценностями и традициями, и выстраивать сотрудничество на основе демократии, справедливости и равноправия. И надо понимать, что этот процесс остановить уже невозможно.
Wow. So the reason I want to speak about this is not only did I find that interesting, but I believe it's important to watch what other world leaders have to say because here in America and in the West in general, especially with what's going on right now currently around the world with all these big shifts happening, it can become so easy to be unaware of it because our media ecosystem is so concentrated and it's so funneled to the point where they basically give you the kind of news that they want you to see, and you only get essentially one side of any particular story. And there's so much propaganda that you must sift through, and it becomes difficult. And things, clips like this, you don't even see, you don't hear of, you don't know the perspective of quote unquote enemy state or their leaders. But this is a place where we at least would like to entertain some of it, or the most that we can. So let's get into what he has to say. He starts off by saying that they should have realized that they have already lost from the very beginning of our special military operation, because its beginning also meant the start of a fundamental breakdown of the American world order. He says, and I quote, "This is the beginning of the transition from liberal globalist American egocentrism to a truly multipolar world." And the way that I see it, that's what this entire thing has been about. And by thing, I'm referencing the situation in Ukraine. That is a much smaller piece of a very big puzzle here that we're witnessing be put together. We know this, and many people know this, and many that do know it, may not like to admit it, but the American empire has been on a decline for a while now, and it's still on a decline. And a large power that has been on the rise is that of the People's Republic of China. Now, who's really good friends with the People's Republic of China? Well, that'd be the man that just spoke. That'd be Russia, that'd be Putin. And as we witness the rise of these other great powers, and we witness the decline of another, the one that is in decline doesn't like the fact that it's in decline. No great power in the history of the world has. And so, well, what does the power in decline do? Well, it does everything that it can do to slow, to delay, to stop that decline. And in doing so, it's flailing about every which way, doing everything that it possibly can in order to stop not only its decline, but the rise of the other powers that it considers to be a threat. The powers that don't adopt neoliberalism, that don't force austerity on their populations, that don't or that would like to promote a socialism in China's case, or etc. And so they deploy all types of maneuvers to enact out their imperialist hegemony. And it includes things like this proxy war in Ukraine. It includes that $600 billion counter to China's Belt and Road Initiative, which I'm sure is backed in terms of value trillions of dollars that has been incredibly successful for them. There was also the meeting in Brussels with the NATO countries where they outlined their new quote unquote strategic concept, which is essentially a confirmation of a new Cold War against Russia and China, where they outlined their core values, which isn't imperialism, which isn't hegemony. It's actually defense and freedom and equality for themselves and for the world. That is, of course, what NATO stands for. That's by definition, and it can go unquestioned. No dissent is tolerated. And they outline in that new strategic concept that people or powers like Russia and China, for instance, are huge threats and they need to be stopped under any circumstances. That is what was outlined in the strategic concept. And as you can see, what's also being brought upon us is that NATO is, of course, looking to expand and strengthen themselves because of this fear of a new multipolarity that is emerging, and they would wish to prevent the emergence of. So you see countries like Finland, like Sweden looking pressed to join NATO, and the list may only get longer at this point. And you see them trying to not only surround Russia, but they're making moves to surround China as well, gearing up for a war with the great power that is the People's Republic of China, expanding their reach in the South China Sea, becoming more friendly with countries in that side of the world to see if they can house weapons there, missiles to point at China, and so on. And all of this is to preserve, to keep hold of the stronghold that the U.S. empire has and NATO as a result has on the world. And I mean, I'll just read you a quick headline that I saw recently. Iran, Russia, and China and 10 other nations are reported to be holding military exercises in Latin America in August. Why are they doing that? Why does Putin feel like he can speak the way that he does that we just watched in that video? It's not as if they all know something that we don't. We pretty much all know the same thing, U.S. leaders included, but we're choosing to deal with it differently. Look, man, this can be a smooth ride down or it can be a bumpy ride. And so far, it has been an extremely bumpy ride. And on the horizon, we see nuclear war and we see a climate disaster that's being exacerbated by such things. War is the biggest driver of, or one of the biggest drivers at the very least, of this entire climate disaster as we push further toward the precipice of human existence. And so this is just, it's all developing before our very eyes. There are many big shifts that are happening, and the world is changing. It is indeed changing. The old world order is dying, and the new one has yet to emerge. And that is quite similar to what we're witnessing now. The world is taking a new shape, one differently from the unipolar world order at which America and NATO is at the head of, and a different one, a multipolar world order, the one that Mr. Putin just alluded to in that video. And I must say, its development is rather interesting.